Now we want to understand routing in MVC. This is one of the tricky topics that I had when I first started learning MVC. So I want to make sure that you get familiar with the routing. Before we see the complete routing in action, let me walk you through the three folders that we have. We have a folder for controller, we have a folder for models, and we have a folder for views. By default, we have a home controller that has been created. Models will be all the data related models that we want in the project. So let's say if you are dealing with products that you want to display on the page, you will have a product model and we will be using that model in controller and views. Right now you can just think of models as tables that you want in your database. If you want a product table, you will have a product model. That is not always the case, but we will explore models later on. The main thing that we want to work on is understanding controllers and views. Controller is the heart of the application. At the same time, views is what will be displayed on the screen when user is looking at the page. Now the way navigation works is when we have a home controller, all of the views or UI pages that are displayed with the home controller will be placed inside the same folder name as the controller name. So you can see they have also created a home folder by default. There is also a convention with the naming of controllers. It should always end with the keyword of controller. That is how the application will know that this is a controller. If we expand our home controller, you will see some code right here. We have a class with the name of home controller and it implements the default or the base class of controller. Then right here we are registering the logger using dependency injection. Do not go into that detail right now. I will explain dependency injection in much detail. But for now, to understand routing, you can see we have two action methods. Inside controllers, you can have multiple action methods. If we go back to the URL here, you can notice that we have the controller name and action name. If the URL was /home/privacy, then it will go to home controller, look for a privacy action method, and it will load the content that we have here. The return type for an action method is iActionResult because iActionResult is an abstraction for multiple return type. It can return a view, it can redirect to some action method, or it can redirect a page, and much more. Then I said that if the URL is home/index, it will return the view that we have defined here. Now you might be thinking that where is this view we are talking about? That view will be inside the views folder. The way it finds or maps the view for this index action method is inside the views folder, it will look for the name of the controller, which is home controller, so we have that folder. Inside there, we will have a view with the name of this action method, and it is index action method. So that will be mapped to this particular view. If we open that view, we have some HTML and Bootstrap classes. So here, nothing fancy is going on. We are just displaying some text. So let's run our application and see routing in action. Right now, it will run in the command prompt window, and once that is done, it will run the website on port 5001. In the URL, right now, nothing is present. What should happen if there are no controllers and actions in the URL? We defined that inside the program.cs. We said if nothing is present, default that to home controller and index action method. So what we see on the screen is from the home controller index action method. To confirm that, if you go to the home controller, you can add a debugging point by clicking anywhere on the window. What that will do is when it hits this controller, this will be yellow. So if we go back and if we refresh the page, you can see it hits our breakpoint here. So that means if nothing is present in the URL, it is calling the home controller index action method. Let me also add a debugging point inside the privacy action method. So we will hit continue here and the request goes back. So we will hit continue and then here we have return view that will find out the view that is associated and it will display that on the page. If you right click on the view here, you have link to go to the view. If you click that, it will automatically redirect you to the index view because it knows it has to find the home folder. Inside there will be an index view. This is how controllers and views are associated. So if we go back to the application while this is running, we have the privacy tab here, and you can see on the bottom right the URL that it will go to is home/privacy. So what will be the controller name? Controller name will be home and action name will be privacy. So it will go to the home controller, it will go to the privacy action method, and it will return the view. The view is inside home, we have privacy, and it should display this particular paragraph. Let's go back and hit that. It hits our debugging point, that is great. Let's continue, and it displays the privacy policy. So that is perfect. With this, you can see how routing is working in action with MVC. Based on the URL, you have to define the controller name and action name. It goes to the controller, finds out that action method, and it returns view based on the view that you have defined inside the views folder. Now, if this is too much right now, do not worry. Just understand the basics that I have taught you in this video, but as we proceed with the course, routing will make much more sense. And if this is too much for you, do not worry. You're not alone. When I was learning MVC about 10 years ago, at that time I had a very hard time trying to understand this since I was coming from the web form world where we just have code behind files. So as we program this more, it will get much more familiar and you will love the way it works. So let's continue from the next video.